Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to show you how you can use the CountIF function in Excel. So you can use this to count the number of times something meets a certain criteria and how it works with numbers as well, and even using the CountIFs function if you've got multiple criteria. So I'm working with data from the S&P 500, so I've got the top stocks from the S&P here, at their market cap, their industry sector, and their names. And so one thing that I can do here is use a CountIF function to count the number of times, let's say a certain sector shows up. So it's like computers and technology. Tech stocks are really popular, really large. So what I can do is use the CountIF function to say, okay, I'm going to look at this range and look at how many times this criteria, computers and technology, shows up in here. So it tells me there's 75. So it's searching through column D, looking for computers and technology, tells me that there's 75 of them. Now I could change my formula and drag this down. So instead of computers and technology, we're looking at, let's say, retail and wholesale. 33 of those. What you could do, if you wanted to do a more of a summary on this, what we could do is copy these values over, paste them here, and then go data, remove duplicates. Just remove duplicates for that column. And now what I can do is do a CountIF function that'll basically summarize each one of these. So if I copy this formula down, it's going to give me the breakdown of all these different sectors and how they factor into the S&P 500, how many belong to each sector. So you can see finance has the largest amount at 92. And so this is a really simple way of using the CountIF function. You can obviously type in the string as well. Like if I typed in, computers and technology, that would work as well. But obviously, it's always beneficial to not hard code your formulas like this. You want to be able to just reference them easily, so that way if you do need to change them, you can just change the cell. Because if I had to hard code it, then obviously I'd have to type in this every single time for these different sectors. But by referencing the cell, I can just copy it down and it's going to do it for me. So this is a quick way to do a summary just through a CountIF function. Now another cool thing you can do with the CountIF function is you can use wildcards. So you can use partial matches. So you don't have to look for exact matches. Like for example, we've got consumer staples and consumer discretionary. They add up to 64 entries in the S&P 500. So rather than adding them up manually, what I can do is use the CountIF function again. I'm still selecting this range for the sector, except now what I can do is type in consumer and add an asterisk afterwards. If I close that off, it's going to give me 64, right? So it's counted up all of these. So rather than doing two different CountIF functions and adding them together, I can do this by just adding the asterisks after the word consumer. And so depending on how you're searching for the data, you may want to put this wildcard before or perhaps after. So let's see if we've got the word staples. Right, so if we've got the word staples, then we're looking for staples to be at the end. So that means our asterisk needs to come at the beginning, because with the asterisk, what we're saying is we don't care what happens up until that point, but as long as it ends with the word staples. Right, that's how we interpret that. So whatever can happen before here, that's fine, but as long as it ends in staples, that's how it gives us 35, which is a match for that. Right, if I put an asterisk after that, then I'm going to say as long as it has the string staples somewhere at the beginning or at the end, it doesn't matter, because I don't care. This asterisk tells me I don't care what happens after. This one tells me I don't care what comes before it. So still only 35. Now, so I could use this with something like tech, because we've got computers and technology, right? So there's some that comes after the tech piece, some that comes before it. Right, and so we've got that. That's going to be 75 as well, just because, again, there's nothing else here that contains the word tech in it. And these don't even have to be entire words. Obviously, we can just put in a letter. Anything that contains the word S, right? So now we're going to get a whole boatload of entries just because anything that's got S in the sector is going to show up in here. If we just wanted anything that, you know, started with the letter C, again, put a C at the beginning, asterisk afterwards, it's going to give us computers, consumer, and conglomerates, and construction, 155. So that's what it's giving us. So that's totaling all those with just a single wildcard search. Now, again, we want to avoid having to hard code anything in here. And so let's say, let me use computers as an example. So you're maybe wondering how you can put this into a formula where you're not hard coding anything. So this can be a little bit tricky, but basically how we want it to work, we're still referencing this value. This is our wildcard value. And then what I'm going to do is use an ampersand, and within quotes, put that asterisks in there. Now it's still going to work the same way. So now I've got it. I'm referencing K2, which is my search string here for computers, and I'm adding an asterisk after it. So if I go to formula and evaluate formula, you'll see how this works. So I've got computers, and then it's going to add the asterisks. So it's as if I typed it in with computers and asterisks. So again, if you need the asterisk before, then you can add this piece before. If you just need it after, then you can use it as I've done in this example. And again, we can use, you know, anything that starts with C, got 150. So you've got still the ability to have a dynamic formula. The key thing is you just want to determine where you want to put that asterisk, whether it's at the beginning, at the end, or on both sides. Now let's say we wanted to count the number of stocks here that have a market cap of, let's say, more than $100 billion. Right, so I'm gonna get rid of some of these zeros just to make it a bit easier. So these are the stocks that are in the trillions. These are in the hundreds of billions. So we're going all the way down to about here. So anything over 100 billion, there should be, I counted about 79 of them. So I'm gonna type in 100 billion. So 100,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, 10 million. So let's make sure I've got the right number of zeros there just to make sure. And I think I'm missing 3 more, and that should be good there. And so with the CountIF function, I'm going to look at this column for the market cap, and then for my range. Now, similar to when I was using the wildcard, this time I'm going to insert a greater than or equal to operator using quotes, and then again using the ampersand to link to this. So anything more than, greater than or equal to 100 billion. Right, and so we've got 79. So let's just double check that one more time. That we've got 79 indeed. So it counted all those that fit that criteria. So again, if you wanted to change it to, let's say, 500 billion, it's going to automatically update dynamically. Now I could hard code that number in there, but again, we want to try to avoid hard coding any forms just to make them more flexible and easier to update at a later time. So that's allowed me to do that. Now let's say I also want to look within a really specific range. Let's say between 500 billion and let's say 700 billion. So I want to look between a fairly narrow range. So if I'm looking 500 to 700, you know, we've really only got 2 stocks that would fall into that range. So I can do this using the CountIF function. So CountIF function is on, you should be able to see it on your version of Excel. It's not fairly new, but it might not be available on older machines. But basically what it's doing is we're selecting the criteria range, and we can select our criteria again. So if I say I want it to be greater than or equal to ampersand this lower threshold of 500,000, and then I'm going to still look at that range and say I want it to be less than 700,000. So I've got that, and so it's returned just the 2 values. Now obviously I can mix and match this to say, okay, I want the market cap to be more than 500 million, but I want to count the ones that that are in computers and tech. So I can use this as my other range. And now let's say I want computers and tech stocks that are worth more than 500 billion dollars, and there is 6 of them. So we've got these 2, these 4 at the top, so that's a total of 6. So you can combine criteria and different ranges. It doesn't have to be all in one. And obviously with the CountIF function, you can obviously keep going, do more criteria, as complex as you need it to be. So that's the flexibility using the CountIF. So you can apply multiple rules and really narrow down on what you want to do a count of. Now also go over a few other count related functions. So there's the count A and count blank functions. And what they do is, as their name suggests, well, for count A, it's going to count every non-blank value. So as long as there's a value in there, it's going to include that on here. So it's going to go all the way to the bottom and include all of these cells, so including the headers and that sort of thing. It's going to include everything. The count blank is going to count the number of blank cells within a range. So obviously this is going to the very bottom of my sheet. So 2 really simple functions that are just going to count the number of values. I'm not sure why there's over 504 here, but there could be some extra ones here for some reason, or hasn't been updated based on the source that I used. But anyways, it's going to count the number of non-blank values in a range. Count blank is going to count the blank ones. So that's in a nutshell how you can use the CountIF functions in Excel. CountIF is really simple. We can specify the range we're looking at and the criteria. You know, you can key it in, but ideally you want to use a cell to reference to. That way it's easy to copy it down. And in this example, I extracted the duplicates so I could quickly create a summary. Now, obviously you can do this with a pivot table, but you can also do this with a CountIF function if you don't need to create a table. It's not necessary to do so. And you can also use wildcards in your search. You're going to want to use the asterisks either before or after, depending on how you want to search. If you don't care of what comes after your string, then you want to put the asterisks at the end. If you don't care what comes before, you want to put it before your search string. And if you just want to make sure that the string is found somewhere in the text, then you want to put the asterisk both before and after. And as for dealing with numbers, same sort of idea as with the asterisk. We need to add our greater than or equal to operator and then combine that with a value. And using CountIFs, we can apply multiple rules. We can look for multiple values that fall within a range. We can look for a value in here. We can pull in a value from here. So it's really flexible. It can get really complex. And so there's a lot of flexibility in there with using the CountIFs. So hope you found this useful, and thank you for watching.